the truth can make some feel very uncomfortable. But how far is one willing to go to make a statement? Welcome to my channel, everyone. Courtney Elise here, aka Court Crimes TV. And if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and comment. Also, hit that notification bell. That way you'll know every time I upload. Let's get into the video. Lawrence Fobbs King was born January 13th, 1993 in Ventura, California. His mother was a 15-year-old girl who was allegedly addicted to and alcohol. His biological father, who is obviously a if he's out here messing around with underage girls, abandoned his first wife and Lawrence's mother right after he was born. I'm assuming Lawrence's mother had absolutely no support system because she resorted to support her children and her drug habit. Realizing that she cannot take care of two little children, Lawrence and his brother were put up for adoption 2 years later. They would be adopted by Gregory and Dawn King. While living with the King family, Lawrence was diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder, a condition in which a child fails to form a relationship with his or her caregivers. By the time Lawrence was in the 3rd grade, he began to get bullied by his fellow classmates due to his openness about being gay. He had come out at about 10 years old. In November of 2007, Lawrence was removed from his adoptive home and placed in a group home and treatment center. He alleged that his adoptive father, Gregory King, was physically abusive to him. This family that he was adopted into seemed very strict, almost in an emotionally and mentally type of way. Because at the age of 12, he was placed on probation for theft and vandalization for taking food from his refrigerator. I don't know about y'all, but to have your child, the one that you brought in from a very, very dysfunctional lifestyle, to have that same child put on criminal probation for taking food in a house that he's supposed to be welcomed in is ridiculous. That's like a form of mental abuse, in my opinion. All of this was denied by Gregory, of course. Lawrence started attending E.O. Green Junior High in the 7th grade. This school, E.O. Green Junior High, he was able to feel a lot more comfortable in his skin. He started to really express himself. He started to go by the name Letitia King. He was even starting to wear women's clothing and accessories like high heel boots and makeup and jewelry. Even though Lawrence was very comfortable and open about his sexuality, he was still harassed by the boys there. Because of this, the school sent out emails to the entire staff in E.O. Green Junior High stating, "We have a student on campus who has chosen to express his sexuality by wearing makeup. It is his right to do so. Some kids are finding it amusing, others are bothered by it. As long as it does not cause classroom disruptions, he is within his rights. We are asking that you talk to your students about being civil and non-judgmental. They don't have to like it, but they need to give him his space. We are also asking you to watch for possible problems. If you wish to talk further about it, please see me or Joy Epstein."
The school couldn't stop him from expressing his sexual identity because there were laws that prevent gender discrimination. Just weeks before his shooting death, an 8th grade assistant principal sent a memo to every teacher and it said the following: "We have a student on campus who has chosen to express his sexuality," and I want to stop there and say his sexual identity is really more accurate, "by wearing makeup, and it is his right to do so. Some kids are finding it amusing, others are bothered by it. As long as it does not cause classroom disruptions, he is within his rights."
This was sent out by Assistant Principal Sue Parsons. Despite this email being sent out to bring awareness to Lawrence and his situation, he was still a major target for bullies. It's alleged that Lawrence's little brother became a target due to them simply being related. I guess since he couldn't fight back physically, he started to fight back verbally. He would tell the boys who deliberately went out their way to harass him that they were attractive, and he would ask them if he could sit at their table during lunch. You know, he was trying to make these boys feel just as uncomfortable as they made him feel. One of the boys he would constantly get into it on a daily basis was a 14-year-old boy by the name of Brandon McInerney. A little backstory on Brandon. Brandon was brought up in a very, very dysfunctional household. Not to excuse what he eventually did, but this child was brought up around drug abuse. His father allegedly abused him physically. He was brought up around drugs and violence. His life at home was not good at all. February 11th of 2008, Lawrence, I guess, taking it upon himself to kind of stand up for himself, walked onto a basketball court in the middle of a basketball game and asked Brandon, can he be his Valentine? Mind you, this was in front of the entire basketball team. This was in front of Brandon's friends, who then made fun of him and laughed at him. During lunch that same day, while walking in the corridors, Lawrence would yell out to Brandon in front of everybody, in front of all the students, and say, "Love you, baby." Lawrence was then seen later on that day parading back and forth in high-heeled boots in front of Brandon. A teacher said that they saw Brandon getting visibly upset. On top of this, while seeing Brandon getting mad, Brandon's friends were laughing at him once again. Joy Epstein, the assistant principal, also noticed Brandon's whole demeanor change. And instead of going over and talking to Brandon, all she did was wag her finger at him. It's alleged that Joy Epstein, the assistant principal, who is a part of the LGBTQ community, encouraged Lawrence's flamboyant behavior. Upset and embarrassed, Brandon attempted to recruit other boys from the school to assault Lawrence, but none of them expressed any interest. One of Lawrence's friends said that Brandon came up to her after school and told her to tell Lawrence bye because you'll never see him again. On the morning of February 12, 2008, Brandon was witnessed by other classmates repeatedly looking over at Lawrence. Mind you, all of this, what I'm about to say, is happening in class around a classroom full of students. At around 8:15 a.m., Brandon would go into his book sack, pull out a .22 caliber revolver that was for his grandfather, and shoot Lawrence 2 times in the back of the head. Following the Brandon tossed the gun on the floor and calmly walked out of the classroom. 7 minutes later, Brandon would be apprehended 5 blocks away from the school.
Hi everybody, today is Tuesday, February 12th. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning. I wanted to let you know about an incident that occurred here at E.O. Green School. I'm actually on the campus of the school. At about 8:30 this morning, we had reports of gunfire coming from one of the classrooms. Officers came on the scene very quickly. We found a 15-year-old student here had been inside one of the classrooms here at E.O. Green School. The individual who was responsible for this, the suspect in this case, fled, we believe, fled the area, and he was apprehended by police just a couple of blocks away west of the campus. So the suspect in this case, the individual we believe is responsible for this incident, is in custody. The victim is in surgery right now at St. John's Hospital.
Lawrence would be rushed to St. John's Regional Medical Center, where he was listed in serious condition.
Police say the shooting happened inside a computer lab at E.O. Green Junior High in Oxnard, California, a town about 65 miles northwest of Los Angeles. The school district says 22 other students witnessed the gunfire. 14-year-old Jocelyn Salinas says she knows the victim.
I'm just very devastated that he got shot because he's my friend.
Salinas and more than 1,000 students like her sat waiting for hours inside the confines of the school, kept on lockdown, while authorities made sure everything was safe. During that time, many moms and dads could not contact their kid.
On February 13th of 2008, Lawrence would be declared brain dead. He was kept on life support so his organs could be donated. He would obviously end up passing away later on that day.
Members of the Southern California community are in a state of shock. Police say a 15-year-old boy who was shot in the head by one of his classmates has been declared brain dead. The incident happened at this junior high school on Tuesday. Authorities say an 8th grader entered the computer lab at the end of the first period and fired the gun at the victim. School officials say there were at least 20 students in the classroom at the time. The 14-year-old, whose name has not been released, was arrested a short time later. He could face murder charges.
Following his death, this made national news. Vigils and marches were organized in his honor.
Kids first! Stop the violence! Peace in the street!
Students marched in Oxnard, California in memory of Lawrence Larry King, the 15-year-old student police say was gunned down by a classmate because he was openly gay. King's murder shocked the Southern California community.
Condolences were expressed by celebrities such as Ellen DeGeneres, Janet Jackson, and Hillary Clinton.
On February 12th, an openly gay 15-year-old boy named Larry, who was an 8th grader in Oxnard, California, was murdered by a fellow 8th grader named Brandon. Larry was killed because he was gay. Days before he was murdered, Larry asked his killer to be his Valentine. I don't want to be political. This is not political. I'm not a political person, but this is personal to me. A boy has been killed and a number of lives have been ruined. And somewhere along the line, the killer, Brandon, got the message that it's so threatening and so awful and so horrific that Larry would want to be his Valentine, that killing Larry seemed to be the right thing to do. And when the message out there is so horrible that to be gay, you can get killed for it, we need to change the message.
Thousands of students in the Hueneme School District, where E.O. Green is located, sorry if I mispronounced that school district name, did a march of solidarity in honor of Lawrence. Now, Lawrence's father, his adoptive father, Gregory King, was not here for the media trying to portray Lawrence as the poster child for gay rights. He was allegedly unconvinced that his son Lawrence, the one who was seen walking around in boots and high heels and makeup and wearing women's clothing, was not gay, but that he was bisexual. This is all alleged. I read this online. Some teachers surprisingly showed support for Brandon, stating, "We failed Brandon. We didn't know the bullying was coming from the other side." Larry, who is Lawrence, was pushing as hard as he could because he liked the attention. Some students from E.O. Green Junior High also signed a petition for Brandon to be tried as a juvenile. But on July 24th of 2008, a judge ruled that Brandon would be tried as an adult. On August 7th of 2008, Brandon would plead not guilty to premeditated murder and a hate crime. Now, the pre-trial for all of this was wild because it was constantly delayed, and there was a major delay because Brandon's father, William McInerney, would be found dead on the floor in his living room due to an accidental fall. This would once again cause the preliminary hearing to be postponed. The judge granted Brandon permission to leave the juvenile detention center to attend his father's funeral. After the constant delay and postponing of the trial would finally begin July 5th of 2011. The morning of the first day of trial started off with drama. Brandon's half-brother was admonished by the judge because he went up to the jury outside and told them that the fate of my brother lies in your hands. You can't do that. He would promptly be banned from the courtroom unless he was summoned to testify. The trial would start with the prosecutor depicting Brandon as your typical teenage boy. They said he was a popular 8th grade jock, very tall and very athletic. They also said that he was skilled in martial arts and firing guns. They also brought up the fact that Brandon was influenced by white supremacy. They say this because when they apprehended Brandon after shooting Lawrence, they found a book about Hitler. They found Hitler's book in his book sack, and they also came across the fact that Brandon was talking to some alleged white supremacists.
Brandon was picked up just blocks from school. Inside his backpack, police found a copy of Hitler's manifesto and notebooks with Nazi scribbles. The 14-year-old was charged as an adult with first-degree murder and a hate crime.
On the other hand, the prosecutor went on to describe Lawrence as a small guy who was often picked on. You know, Lawrence was gay and he was vulnerable to constantly be picked on by the bigger guys, the bigger athletic guys, about his sexuality. Brandon's attorney would fire back saying that Lawrence was the aggressor. They said Lawrence was often very sexually aggressive and made numerous inappropriate remarks, provoking Brandon.
The defense says Larry humiliated Brandon with his sexual taunts.
Somebody said that he went onto the basketball court in front of all Brandon's friends, embarrassed him, and asked him to be his Valentine.
His lawyer argued Brandon was misunderstood That Hitler book came from the school library for a World War II book report. But Brandon, who was once an honor student, had been falling behind in school. Both his parents were addicted to drugs. Brandon's father was beating him violently, according to his brother.
He was a little kid who just got pushed to the brink.
So in your view, he just lost it?
Yeah.
On July 7th of 2011, students testified stating that many students picked on Lawrence and called him offensive names behind his back and to his face. Other students stated that, you see, this whole case was very, very split. Some people were on Brandon's side, some people were obviously on Lawrence's side. Other students stated that they never saw Lawrence making sexual advances towards other students. But the sexual comments that he did make, that he would make towards Brandon, was just to mess with him. You see, unfortunately, not everyone is here to play. Not everyone has your sense of humor. Not everyone takes what you think is funny as a joke. On July 11th of 2011, Assistant Principal Joy Epstein said she discussed Lawrence's behavior with other school officials. And according to the constitutional rights of California, Lawrence was able to wear whatever he wanted as long as he didn't violate the school dress code. Another teacher, who is unnamed, testified that students had told her that Lawrence would seek them out and follow them into the bathroom, behavior she considered to be sexual harassment. I'm assuming she would tell the principal about it, but was told that the school could do nothing. One of the corrections officers testified that Brandon was a good kid in the honors program for good behavior and had relationships with many people of different backgrounds and origins, despite the jury being shown footage of Brandon fighting in the Ventura County Juvenile Hall. Now, the teacher who taught both Brandon and Lawrence, you know, her classroom was where Brandon murdered Lawrence, testified. Her name is Dawn Boldrin. She testified and said that she counseled Lawrence and told him that he should not wear attention-getting clothing if he did not want to receive negative attention. But get this, she's the one, Dawn Boldrin, she's the one who got Lawrence that green strapless dress that he was pictured in. She said that she gave it to him the Friday before the shooting occurred. Due to it not being a part of the school dress code, she said she told him that that gown was meant for him to wear outside of school.
My understanding is, Dawn, you actually gave him some clothing.
Yeah. Yes. When I had found out, because see, it's just more complicated now. I gave Larry a dress, one of my older daughter's homecoming dress, and when I gave it to him in private on the Friday prior to the shooting, because a lot of people seem to be under the misunderstanding that Larry was running around in this dress. It was not dress code, and Larry did adhere to the dress code.
She faced a lot of backlash when she said this, because I feel she should have consulted in Lawrence's guardian, because it said that at the time of Lawrence's death, he never moved back in with the King family. He was still in a group home.
Now, is that the father that we're saying kicked his kid out of the home, sent him to foster care?
It was more than just kicking his kid. I was told when I went to the administration as to why Larry was in foster care, that his parents had physically abused him.
So he was removed from the home because of physical abuse. So he wasn't like kicked out of the home in some sort of peculiar way. There was physical abuse in the home.
And Child Protective Services came and took him out of the home.
And what you're thinking is, you're alleging this, we don't know this for a fact, that he was physically abused because of his sexual orientation.
I was told specifically there was violence orientated towards Larry that was because he was the way he was.
This made Lawrence's father extremely upset. He ended up gathering his family to leave the courtroom, but before doing so, Dawn King, Lawrence's adoptive mother, allegedly swore at Dawn Boldrin's 13-year-old daughter and relative. She was later barred from the remainder of the trial. The defense argued that due to the school administration allowing Lawrence to wear whatever he want and pretty much taunt without being reprimanded, allowed Lawrence to sexually harass Brandon. This trial was intense, to say the least, but it ended without a verdict and was declared a mistrial. When it was declared a mistrial, it devastated a lot of people because, like I said before, a lot of people feel that this was premeditated and Brandon is obviously guilty of premeditated murder and a hate crime. The jury reported they were hopelessly deadlocked and unable to reach a unanimous verdict. There were 8 weeks of testimony. Almost 100 witnesses testified. They had been deliberating since August 26th of 2011. I'm pretty sure their brains were tired. The jury had taken 4 votes, and the last vote was split between 7 jurors voting for voluntary manslaughter and 5 jurors voting for either first degree or second degree murder. Later analysis showed defense attorneys had chosen to pursue the gay defense strategy. This is a victim-blaming strategy of legal defense, which refers to a situation in which a heterosexual individual charged with a violent crime against a homosexual or bisexual individual claims they lost control and reacted violently because of an unwanted sexual advance that was made upon them.
These jurors say they saw a child as well. They're now wearing Save Brandon bracelets in support. They deliberated for 4 days but couldn't agree on a verdict. A hung jury, a mistrial. These jurors are speaking out together for the first time. They all believe Brandon should never have been charged as an adult.
How many of you were convinced it was a hate crime? Not even close. Why do you shake your head, Nancy?
It was, to me, way off base.
Don't forget, there was a boy who also was murdered, shot in the head.
Forgot that. Never. Not as a group, not as individuals, never.
Several jurors later stating on the television program 2020 that Lawrence began bullying Brandon, leaving Brandon with no way out. The second trial would ensue. During the second trial, the prosecutors dropped the hate crime charges. And on November 21st of 2011, Brandon pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, voluntary manslaughter, and use of a firearm. He was sentenced to 21 years with no credit giving for time served. He now resides in the Folsom State Prison.
We're kind of, it's a little bit bittersweet. I don't think that 21 years is really justice for cold-blooded murder, but on the other hand, we've been going through this for 4 years, and at least there's some closure coming up.
Now, I should have mentioned this earlier, but a memorial service was held for Lawrence on February 22nd of 2008 at the Westminster Presbyterian Church. He was buried during a private funeral service in Ivy Lawn Memorial Park. I feel Brandon definitely should have been charged with premeditated murder because for all of this to happen, granted, Lawrence shouldn't have went as far as he did with yelling out to Brandon, saying, "I love you, baby," in the middle of class and going up to Brandon during his basketball game and asking him to be his Valentine. I'm not condoning that, but I feel Brandon should have been charged with premeditated murder because he thought this out. People said the day before he shot and killed Lawrence that he told them to tell Lawrence goodbye because you'll never see him again. He thought long and hard to go home, get this gun, and Lawrence twice in the back of the head in front of everyone. Granted, the adults failed these 2 little boys as well because I feel the adults should have taken this seriously. They should have put Lawrence in his place by telling him to calm it down and not encouraging his behavior. They also should have put the other boys that were constantly picking on Lawrence as well.
Let's talk about the issues. What concerns you? There's a kid at school coming on to me. He's gay. I'm uncomfortable. If all of that had been in place, this could have been prevented.
Don, was there anything like that for these kids?
Oh, no. No, there wasn't.
Were there clouds forming? Could you see this coming?
I personally didn't see this coming. Again, a lot of the other teachers did. I learned a lot after the fact in the trial that the administration actually did as well. And people drop the ball continuously.
This whole case is sad. It really is, because I feel the adults failed these children. A life is lost and another child, well, he's not a child now, but is sitting in jail. But rest in peace to you, Lawrence, aka Letitia. Your unfortunate demise sparked a nationwide protest, and it brought attention to gay rights. Rest in peace, Lawrence.